The Romans, Part 7. More problems arose from the populations living in Italy. These were Roman allies, Soci, and they were enlisted in the Roman army. However, the Soci didn't have the Roman citizenship. That meant fewer rights and privileges. The Italian allies wanted the Roman citizenship. War broke out in 91 before Christ. The Samnites and the Marsi revolted. For 3 years, the Romans and these populations fought really hard. More than 30,000 men died on both sides. While the war was raging, most of the Etruscans, Umbrian, and Latins were loyal to Rome, which decided to give them the Roman citizenship. Finally, the Romans defeated the rebels in 88 before Christ. The Romans had to grant the citizenship to the rebels anyway. After the war, the number of citizens doubled and the Romanization of Italy was completed. Another factor of crisis was the army. Since its foundation, Rome enlisted only citizens who had a certain amount of money. But the wars were too many, and the army needed more men. Consul Caius Marius reformed the army, making it a professional army. Caius Marius decided to enlist in the army even the Capitecensi, men that owned only their souls. In Roman society, there were a lot of men who wanted to join the army, and Marius gave them a chance. Since these men were poor and could not afford the equipment, Marius decided that the res publica had to provide weapons and armor. In addition, Marius gave the soldiers a pay and the opportunity to gain spoils during wars. When the soldiers retired from the army, they received land and a pension. Marius established that soldiers could start to be part of the army at 17 years old. They had to stay in the army for 16 years, later for 20 years. Soldiers were now trained to fight, to build military camps and war machines. Soldiers became professionals. Marius also established that each legend could have a symbol in order to be different from the other legends. The symbols were extremely important for the legend. If they fell in enemies' hands, it meant that the legend was defeated. For this reason, the legend's symbol was overprotected. Specialized men had the duty to protect it. Marian reforms gave a lot of power to the army and the generals in particular, because when there was a threat of war, they had to recruit men. So soldiers were linked to their generals. The army was loyal to its generals. Slaves' revolts, farmers' anger, Soci's request to become citizens, and the resistance of the Senate to approve any social reform led to civil wars. In 60 before Christ, Caesar allied himself with Crassus and Pompey in the first Triumvirate in order to split political positions and their benefits. So Crassus went to Syria to fight the Parthians. Pompey went to Spain, and Caesar. In 59 before Christ, Julius Caesar became consul. He led the invasion of Gallia for about 10 years. In 50 before Christ, the Gauls were defeated and the territory got under the Roman control. When Caesar came back to Italy, he commanded 10 legions. In the meanwhile, Crassus died fighting the Parthians, and soon Caesar and Pompey broke their alliance. The Senate intimated Caesar to dismiss his army and called Pompey to protect the res publica. Caesar crossed the Rubicon with his army. It was civil war. Caesar defeated his enemies, and in 46 before Christ he entered in Rome and celebrated his triumph. Caesar didn't take revenge over his enemies in order to have peace again. In 44 before Christ, he became dictator for life. But not everybody in Rome wanted a dictator. Caesar, that same year, was killed by his foster son Brutus. The end. Thank you for watching. Enough.